The LGBTQIA plus community is one of the most marginalized communities known to date. They constantly have to deal with the effects of implicit bias, both in the workplace and also in healthcare, in many different settings, but those are the two most prominent to me. And they also have to deal with censorship at the same time as them having to fight for justice for themselves and their fellow members of their community. So, queer people suffer from the effects of implicit bias in the workplace by having to deal with those coworkers who think they're being so funny and who crack those little jokes and think that this is just like banter or, everyone's laughing, so it's so funny and okay, which 9 times out of 10, it's just pure blatant homophobia disguised as a joke, which just leads to feelings of wanting to like dim your own light, to kind of fly under the radar, or going to superiors and them not doing anything about it because they can't say that they agree, but they do. Having to deal with trying to figure out whether or not you should put your actual sexuality on your job application because there are instances where if you do put your authentic sexuality, your application could get tossed out before they even look at job history, qualifications, anything else about you. They're going to see one part of who you are and completely not care about finding anything else out about who you are. Or you don't put your sexuality on your job application and then you're hiding a part of you and you're letting them win, not to place blame on anybody in the queer community who suffers from this, but in a sense, you are letting them win because you are acknowledging and feeding into this bias against you and your community. In healthcare, the stigma around STIs, HIV, AIDS, it's very, very, very negatively centered around queer people. Um, and I just think that that's a struggle. I think that concerns over healthcare and treatment are disregarded because of bias, whether it is, what is the word? Whether it's on purpose or just purely on instinct, like this is just what you think and it clouds your judgment. Um, Again, also just with the difference in treatment and care, similarly to how like the mortality rates for Black pregnant women are much higher than those of white women, Hispanic women, Asian women. It just goes into the level of care given, and there's a clear divide there. Uh, in regards to censorship, in 2023, 41% of the 140 books that were banned in the United States had LGBTQ material in them, whether they were whether they were LGBTQ characters or storylines or anything of the sort. 41% of all books banned in the year of 2023 pertained to the LGBTQ community. Um, Another example of censorship when it comes to the LGBTQ community would be the bills and laws that are passed against the community. Um, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida signed into law the Don't Say Gay bill that basically prohibits certain grade levels from learning about gender identity or sexual orientation. I'm currently taking a child growth and development class, and I can firsthand speak to how important both of those things are, especially to young people. I think that it is wildly irresponsible to ban that, and like, it just goes into certain people wanting to reshape the American educational system to the way that they personally see fit, not to what they genuinely think the children would benefit the most from. Um, that bill was passed in 2022. On the other hand, there are several million members of the LGBTQIA plus community who are, for lack of a better term, fighting the good fight. They are activists for their community. And within the different, labels of that community, you have gay people fighting for transgender rights. You have lesbians fighting for gay rights. Everyone is fighting for each other because at the end of the day, they are all a part of this community and they are all being treated with such hate and disdain from people who shouldn't really have an opinion on how any of these people live their lives. Um, they gather to protest and they toss around petitions and they really believe in the causes that they're fighting for, such as transgender rights, especially when it comes to the ability to use the bathroom that you need to use, the ability to play on certain sports teams, um, like fighting back against the alarming rise in homophobic or just anti-LGBTQ hate crimes. And also, I spoke on this earlier, but they are also doing wonders to try and destigmatize AIDS and HIV. Now, I don't want to say that as in they are trying to make AIDS sound or they're trying to sweeten it up so that it doesn't look as bad. We all know that it can be deadly and it's dangerous, and it is unfortunately a disease that does not go away. But those who do contract HIV or AIDS are not, sometimes society treats them like leopards, kind of. And I think the LGBTQ community, as well as healthcare workers who may or may not be a part of the community, I think they're doing a wonderful, wonderful thing in trying to destigmatize the hate surrounding HIV and AIDS and also other STIs because I feel like the queer community really does get the worst end of it, especially gay men. They get the worst of the hateful comments and death wishes when it comes to HIV or any other STI. So those are just a couple ways that they are fighting back against um, the hate. Currently, there's a big divide within the country about LGBTQ rights. In the more progressive states like New York, California, and Illinois, they are really, really fighting to protect members of the community and their rights, as well as trying to fight against discrimination in both healthcare and the workplace. In less progressive and more conservative states such as Florida, Texas, and Oklahoma, they are really cracking down on LGBTQ rights, such as limiting transgender people's access to bathrooms, sports teams, allowing adoption agencies to reject applications from queer prospective parents, and even allowing landlords to potentially evict or just deny tenants um, whose lifestyles or sexuality does not align with their personal political beliefs. Um, it's just there's such a clear divide in this country that actually it kind of snowballs into a lot of different things because there are many different topics in this country that a lot of people are kind of split down the middle on. LGBTQ rights being nearing at the top of the list, but it is still a very long list nonetheless. Solutions. What can people do to bring about allyship and support? What can be done to bring changes? I personally believe that one of the best ways, it's probably the easiest of the three that I will list, the best way to provide allyship to the LGBTQ community is to simply educate yourself. Educate yourself on the history of queer people and all of the different lesbian people, gay people, bisexual people, transgender people, all of these different sub-communities within the one big community. Educating yourself on the current state of different laws and uh, bills, legislatures that are being signed in, as well as current events, like what's going on at the moment. There's always a lot of things going on. Some great to read, some really good feel-good stories, and some that are a little heartbreaking and gut-wrenching, like, the rise in, teenage suicides of those who are part of the LGBTQ community. I personally volunteer. This brings me into my second way to help. I personally volunteer with the Trevor Project, and I also work on a LGBTQ youth suicide hotline. So I answer the phones and I give people who feel like they're in a very dark place the space to talk about what's currently going on. And then I try my best to just provide, a listening ear and just love and support. The Trevor Project also, they send you emails, they have a newsletter, they also provide you with resources that are more local to your own community, wherever you are. For me, I live in California, so I do live in one of the most progressive states, so there's always something going on that I can go in. Either there's always a protest or there's always an event that I can go to. In less progressive states, it's probably something more online or maybe something you would have to travel for, but nonetheless, I still think it's very important just to show support and allyship, whether you are a member of the community or not. Um, and then the third thing that you can do, I have four things. Third thing that you can do is to donate. Donating money, I know that it seems like every cause ever is asking for money. The money does go to really good sources, though. You can donate to different GoFundMes for, teenage LGBTQ runaways who are also in a very dark place where they feel like in their own locations, like they just can't be who they are openly, freely, and safely. Donate to campaigns that fund different projects or fund protests that, your representatives can see. And then the fourth thing that you can do to show support and allyship is to write letters and make phone calls into your states, cities, counties, representatives. You can also write in letters to your congresspeople. You can write a letter to the President of the United States. You can write a letter to anybody. I think it's a really great way to really show there is, obviously, we know there is strength in numbers. It's really just showing the people who are chosen to represent you that this is what you care about. And I think the more you make your voice heard, the better chances are of something being done from it. I know for a fact when I email the representative, sometimes they respond and send a link to a town hall meeting or somewhere where you can make a public comment and just really make your voice heard. I think it's a great way to advocate for those who might not feel like they can or they should, or those who might not feel safe to speak up for themselves and their rights in their community. So, that being said, um, ways to support, it does, I will admit, sometimes it feels like not a losing battle, but when you don't see results right away, it starts to feel a little, you just get a little down with it because you're like, I'm trying so hard and I'm not seeing results. But as they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. Uh, Decades and decades and centuries of hate and prejudice, just, similarly to racism, doesn't go away in 2 days and a couple phone calls. I just think that, like I said, there's strength in numbers, and I think that the more you use your voice and speak up, the better they start to hear you.